Hi, I'm Ken Jacobson, Senior Documentary Programmer, AFI Festivals. Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have back with us for the Q&A David Henry Gerson, the director of The Story Won't Die. And we're also thrilled to be joined by the producer, Odessa Rae, and two very special guests from the film. Our moderator for this conversation is Gil Robertson. Writer and author Gil Robertson is the co-founder of the African American Film Critics Association, AFCA, the largest group of Black film critics in North America. As its president, Gil oversees the annual AFCA Awards, which has become a recognized fixture of the Hollywood Awards season. Gil has written over 50 magazine covers and contributing bylines to a wide range of national publications. And as an author, he has written and edited numerous books, including Not in My Family, AIDS in the African American Community, and Book of Black Heroes, Political Leaders, Past and Present. It's great to have you with us today, Gil. Thanks so much for leading this conversation. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Ken, for having me back. We're talking to the creators and two of the cast members for this and very powerful and thought-provoking documentary, The Story Won't Die, which basically follows 8. I don't know if we want to call them refugees, but displaced people from the Syrian revolution. This film was heavy, and it's just, you keep seeing this story play out in so many parts of the world, but this one with half the population displaced, with over 500,000 people dead, with engagements from the Gulf states and from Russia and from Iran and from the West. And there's just so many different political players in this particular story about these people who just want to live a regular life. David and Odessa, what was your inspiration for wanting to get these stories out there and let people just really what was taking place?
Thank you, Gil, for that introduction. And for me personally, I think Odessa and I maybe came from a similar background. We both had an interest in the arts and in exile. And when my AFI thesis film, All These Voices, won the Student Academy Award, there was a short documentary about the island of Lesbos that won that same year. And I just, really for the first time, really looked to Syria. And heard that there were 13 million displaced people in this country, and half of the nation had been displaced. And my background, my father grew up as he in a displaced persons camp. I think that's a good term. And so something in my DNA, he was born after World War II. As a child, I was told never forget. And here was history, in a sense, repeating itself. And so something in me said, I need to really pay attention to this. And as we were looking through these stories, we found wonderful, fascinating people that I'm lucky today to have with us, and lucky to call my friends in many ways, because these are people who are just totally inspiring stories of artists who have been processing what they witnessed and experienced. It's almost awkward for me to speak for you guys. They're here as well. So I guess that's kind of how it all began. And then Odessa and I met, and we had this shared interest, and we just kept trying to figure out who could tell us the story and who could kind of teach us along this way.
So Odessa, what went into the selection process? Because clearly there are a lot of artists, Syrian artists who are part of this displaced community, but how did you land upon the 8 individuals who are in this movie?
I would say it was a very organic process. We started with a research assistant and David and I going through and digging through the internet to find any artists from, actually started with a more broad approach, not just Syria, but any sort of displaced artists, and using their art in a way to help them heal from this trauma or this journey that they were undertaking. And we made one of our first trips to Berlin because we found that a lot of the people that we were interested in were living in Berlin. And then I feel like it just narrowed in. And it was so interesting to focus on a group that was pretty intertwined in a lot of ways. And I felt like they complemented each other's stories. And so, yes, it started with a broader sort of let's research everything. And then we got to Berlin and we were both like, well, let's just do the Syria and let's just focus in a little bit more and focus in on this group that seemed to also be intertwined in their own lives. And yeah, so it was quite organic, actually.
I would just add to that, we brought on a co-producer at one point, a wonderful guy named Abdelaziz Al-Hamza, who was in Matthew Heinemann's film City of Ghosts. And he really helped introduce us to a lot of people as well, and really helped guide us in the making of the film.
That's true. I really feel Aziz helped shape it because he was coming from the inside. He'd left Syria. He'd started a citizen journalist group. He was very connected to many of the interesting people who also use their art and music and or language to angst to fight the regime. And he kind of also guided the process, have to say that.
So Bahila and Medhat, were you at all cautious, trepidatious about, having your story and having your struggle, put on film, preserved on film, captured in a way that, that people would know it was you who, was making this statement in such a big and broad way? What was your thought process after being approached and agreeing to be a part of this experience?
To be completely honest, I was really fed up from all the stories that all the people that were approaching us, and just like kind of like laboratory rats just want to exhibit on us and stuff. And to be more completely honest, till now I was not able to see the movie completely because it brought back a lot of bad memories and stories, and especially that a lot of the people the artists featured in the film are my friends. So I didn't really want to see them suffer also again. But I've heard some really nice feedbacks, and I'm happy that it reached a completely different audience from the different side of the globe.
I actually pulled that quote from when I watched the film, and were you concerned about the vulnerability that would be involved, or were you concerned about perhaps people at home in sharing your story? And obviously the filmmakers were able to give you the confidence that your story was needed to be told, and I thought your particular story was fascinating to see a group of female rock stars.
Actually Odessa and David were very kind. I felt like I was not speaking in front of a camera, which is really nice. It's just that I didn't feel that this can help, I really don't know how to fit the words in, but I came to a point where it's like, okay, and now what? There's nothing more.
And I was going to say to David on Odessa, that feeling, that expression of futility is something that a number of the subjects express throughout the film. And, your heart just goes out to them because you're really wondering what will the impact be of these stories being put out there.
For sure. And we went through this well, because as we got deeper into the actuality, you have this idea of what you're going to go film, and then you get to know Bahila or Anas or Medhat, and you're like, it's actually like this, and that's why we wanted to include that in the film, not just here are these people and it's this journey, but this is the struggle and this is the reality, and it's true. We're making a film, but for them, who it's like, okay, well, how's this going to fix my situation? Or those questions are honest and important, you know? And it's also to the global community. Like we go in America, we're so good at like talking and not taking action, you know, like here's this fabulous thing we did. And yet what are we actually doing, you know, to,
You know, historically, art has had a profound effect on shifting public attitudes and changing public policy. In what ways have these the campaigns that have been put forth by these artists perhaps maybe moved the needle with regards to the challenges in Syria?
I mean, I certainly couldn't speak to what has actually changed or not changed in Syria, but I do know how it's moved the needle in myself, and that I would hope that it would move the needle in audience as well, is really, on the one hand, a real appreciation of freedom of expression. Hearing stories of people who are not able to post an image on Facebook or post a dance move or a song for security risks, makes me really appreciate that I can criticize my government if I so choose to do in this country, or any other thing I wish to say. And I think in the broader sense, there's a great quote or a line that Tamam Azam, the painter in the film, says, which is that art can talk about politics, but politics can never talk about art. And that, I think that sort of hits me as to one of the main reasons to make this film, is finding these ways that we can connect beyond the divisions that we see in the world.
Now, Bahila and Medhat, in what ways did art forms from America, particularly hip hop, punk, metal, influence or inspire the work that both of you are doing?
It hit a lot because we learned a lot about how we dance hip hop, how we listen to this music. It doesn't matter if it's in the street or in university where we learn dance. Also modern dance, like big names like Martha Graham and this stuff. This was our basics, so kind of influence a lot as a dancer, let's say. It has a big influence on us, of course.
Bahila?
Yeah, actually, I grew up listening to Western music. I'm not gonna generalize, but my personal taste was not going to the Oriental music at that time. So this is where I learned my English, also from films and movies and music in particular. Yeah, a lot of cheesy music, but it made me who I am later on, and develop.
We were very happy that Jack White personally was a big fan of Karma Band, which was Bahila's band, which was this first girl rock band in Syria, and he gave us permission to use her cover of his song. Yeah,
I took this message actually to the band members, and they were so happy. It was an emotional moment, remembering all the good times.
Because that clip was from 2010 or 11?
12.
2012, yeah.
I think 12, 13.
Right in the beginning of the war.
12 million out of the country and the regime is still there. I mean, you touched on it earlier, David. I mean, how does that happen? You have half the country that's gotten out of there, but yet the Assad regime is still standing strong. What were your takeaways with regards to why this crisis continues, after working with the people and spending so much time in creating this project?
That's a very difficult question, Gil. And I don't know if I'm really equipped to answer it, other than to say there are many parties at play here. And my great hope would be that we hear the artists who can show us the human voice of what's really going on and continuing to go on, rather than, I guess one way of looking at it is we might see, for example, on TV or the news bombed out buildings in Syria and around the world today, including. And we can grow desensitized to it. And it is, for me at least, what I've learned is that it's these voices of these artists who can give us fresh ways to see these things. I sort of sometimes talk about like seeing a Van Gogh painting. You can see the painting and you've seen it 10,000 times, Starry Night on a backpack, on a billboard, on a coffee cup. When you really see the painting, it takes time to lose that what you think you're seeing. And I believe it's the artist's task here, and what these 8 really talented individuals have done to help us see something in a new light, so that atrocities do not continue on. I don't know if that's a legitimate answer or not, but.
No, very much so. Odessa, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Well,
Or maybe the question would be better put to Bahila and Medhat in terms of why, why the regime is still, maintaining its grip on, I believe the Assad regime has control of the majority of the country currently, with only a few holdouts. So, what are your thoughts when you think about your fellow countrymen today? Men and women today.
I prefer not to.
And it's a story that's still being played out. So we'll go ahead and move forward.
I'll just say there's a great image that Tamam made, and Medhat, if you want to say something, but of a shopping cart, of different weapons in the shopping cart that just says Syria for sale. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's essentially a proxy war. So it's very hard to dissect, because everyone now has their stake in the ground, and it's not just Assad, it's the countries that back him that want that territory versus the countries that back the other groups that are in there. It's just such a mess. And that's just what happened sort of from correct me if I'm wrong, but 2013 on, it really just became a proxy war. Our administration was bombing Syria again within the first month of the Biden administration taking over.
But it may be easier to talk about art than politics.
Right. So adjusting to new parameters, Bahila and Medhat, how are you adjusting to your lives? At one point in the film, it becomes clear that many of you were moving forward and were creating lives of your own in your new environments. So what's life for you like now?
It's more continuing. Like, I think even if our country got destroyed or we lost so many people, that they wish to us that we live a nice life now and we live a successful life, that we can send a small, clear message that we are still alive, and no matter where we are, we can keep continuing building our dreamland or our goals, making it true, or just being deserve the chance that you are alive, something like that. So it's a big responsibility, actually.
There was a lot of talk about the struggle of connectivity and of maintaining that connectivity with your countrymen, with your community, with their day-to-day struggle, especially as you now live in the West. I know one of the scenes where the guy was talking to this mother while he was making boiling tomatoes, and just it was plainly illustrated. She's literally talking about life and death, and he's trying to make a salad. So
one thing was also he's trying to give hope. I love that scene, and it's like, for me, one of the real beauties of making a documentary versus a narrative film. I couldn't write that scene, and he at one point says, "Look at my new shirt. You like my new shirt?" And she goes, "It's the top. It's just something like it's the same color as your forehead." And at first I was watching this saying, this is just someone joking around, like you said, like, is this just this contrast? But it really was like this trying to give hope to your mother, and his whole journey. You know, and for me, one of the hard parts about speaking about this film is everyone in this film has a completely different journey, a different different artworks, different journey, different human beings. And one of the things we struggled with in the film was how to weave these complexities and contrasts into the film. But for him was really to try to get his mother out. And
then there was also a part of it where he was talking to his mom and he had just received his visa, and he was like, look, I'm trying to get you out. And then she responds with a laundry list of other people. And it's like, no, look, I'm trying to get you out.
And your brothers and sisters and everyone
Right.
else. And I think what Medhat was saying too, it's that, I mean, that sort of sense of like responsibility.
You felt for him, definitely.
You felt for him, but that sense of I am free, and with that freedom comes responsibility.
Right.
And that's something I've also really learned from these guys as well. You know, it is at what price comes our freedom, and how to really value that freedom, and appreciate it. And you know, when do we have a responsibility to others that we can help?
Responsibility, and I would say, and Bahila and Medhat, correct me if I'm wrong, but guilt. It's like, well, we are out and we're fine. And that was something that we heard all you guys, I think, talk about, like the guilt that comes with like this existence, you know?
I mean, how have you maintained momentum, you know, given the fact that you are living different lives from what you were before, and that there has been a loss of that community on a day-to-day level? How are you guys navigating that? The two of you navigating that?
Do you have a choice? Like you're
very true.
Yeah. My real question is, do they, the people, our parents and the people inside of Syria and in war zones, maintain the momentum? I really don't know. I have no idea how they do this. And I have no idea how we do this also, because at the end of the day, I think I also speak about all the artists in the film and every displaced person, that we also carry the responsibility and the guilt of being here, even if you're safe, as Odessa said.
So what are the, David, I mean, all of you, what are your other comrades who went on this journey with you for The Story Won't Lie? Can you provide us with some updates?
Well, first off, definitely go to www.thestorywon'tdie.com, where we are posting every show and update and things that people are doing in the film, and you can go, and the film continues on in life. Tamam Azam is having a show in Berlin right now, a solo exhibition at the Kornfeld Gallery until well, I think this is screening after that until June 20th, but I don't know how that fits in. But there's, you know, Lynn Maya, who is Bahila's friend and former bandmate, just had an album come out. Medhat, I'm sure you're performing every single day all over the world. I mean, there's just, you know, constant work. And what's beautiful to me is it's the constant evolution of work. Things, you know, over the last 10 years is a real shift in the development of the work, and as life shifts, as any artist's work would shift over time. So definitely go to the website, see what everyone is doing, follow them on Instagram, and you know, that's the number one.
What do you want the takeaways to be? What should audience members be talking about? What do you want the call to action, the response after people, you know, see this film? What do you want that to look like?
I mean, me personally, I could just start. We started making this film at a time in the United States when policy had changed to bring the lowest number of refugees since World War II into this country. As I mentioned before, my father came into this country. Well, he came as a legal immigrant in this country, but as a refugee ultimately into the United States. And that to me was the image of what this nation is, a land of hope for people around the world. So on the one hand, there's a policy need to change. But two, beyond policy and politics is just a greater understanding and awareness and interest in other cultures around the world, and in understanding people, and hopefully this window into these artists and their artworks allows for that opportunity.
Odessa?
I would definitely just echo David with that point, that I grew up actually all around the world, in India, Hong Kong, Japan, the United States, Canada. And I feel like the one thing that drives everything that I get involved with and every piece of my work is promoting greater understanding between cultures, because we are just all so the same, and we go through different stories, and those stories craft our responses, but essentially, like, we are so similar. And I just love promoting that understanding, I suppose, in whatever way that I can.
Now, at the start of our conversation, you mentioned that originally when you went to Germany, that you were looking to chronicle the experiences of displaced people from all over the world. What are the two of you planning to do next? Are you planning to continue in that vein and look at different communities from other parts of the world?
Well, I'm working on 3 very exciting projects, 2 of which I can't talk about because they're very top secret. And the other one actually is kind of a continuation of this one, and it has to do with the destruction of cultural heritage in conflict zones. And so that's been very interesting, because now we are looking at basically cultural heritage and the fabrics of society, intangible and tangible cultural heritage, and how that creates a fabric of society that is destroyed in conflict. And when you destroy identity, you destroy a people, and it really is our culture and our identity that is under attack these days in modern warfare. Warfare has changed in the world we live in today. It used to be traditional wars where we fought across borders, and now it's identity is the primary target. And so I feel like, that project is a sort of continuation, but the other 2 are very exciting, but I can't share quite yet.
And David?
Yeah, I have a few different narrative films that are one very directly related to the story, and my training at AFI was in narrative storytelling much more than in documentary filmmaking, and this view as documentary filmmaking is much more observing. But when someone like Bahila says to me very clearly, I'm tired of being a lab rat for your documentary, with good understanding, that involves me as well. And so this next project is a little bit more looking at the challenges of wanting to tell a story to help, maybe, I don't know if that's even quite the right word, but and the difficulties of really navigating sort of the disconnect of our world. And I think that generally that's something that interests me. And thank you.
Well, congratulations to all of you, David, Odessa, Bahila, and Medhat. And I know I've just done some things with your name today, brother, but we appreciate you and thank you for joining us at AFI.